Good afternoon, hoops and hockey fans. Big Al here on this Monday, December 11th, 2023. We're just 2 weeks away from Christmas, believe it or not. And welcome to my weekly check of the NBA and NHL standings as we look at the standings in both leagues through Sunday, December 10th. And we'll also run down all the games playing in both leagues over the next 7 days. All right, let's click onto my Sports Alerts app, and we're going to go ahead and get started with a look at the NBA standings through December 10th. And we'll start, as always, in the Eastern Conference, led by the Boston Celtics with a record of 16-5, 7-3 in their last 10 games, including a win in their most recent game. Then you've got the Philadelphia 76ers sitting in second place at 14-7. They are 2 games behind the Celtics, 6-4 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. The New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets are tied for third, both at 12-9. Both are 6-4 in their last 10. The Knicks lost their last 2 games, while Brooklyn is on a 3-game win streak. And the Toronto Raptors round out the Atlantic with a record of 9-13. They are 7.5 games out, 4-6 in their last 10, including 3 straight losses. Oh, what I didn't mention is that both New York and Brooklyn trail Boston in the Atlantic by 4 games. I forgot to mention that. Sorry about it. Okay, on to the Central Division. The Milwaukee Bucks are on top at 15-7, 7-3 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game. In a virtual tie for second place, you have the Indiana Pacers at 12-8, 6-4 in their last 10, including 3 straight wins. And the Cleveland Cavaliers at 13-9, 7-3 in their last 10 games, including 3 straight wins. And both are 2 games out behind the Bucks. In fourth place and playing a lot better, the Chicago Bulls at 9-14, 6.5 out of first. 5-5 in their last 10, including 4 straight wins. And last in the Central are the Detroit Pistons with the worst record in the NBA at 2-20. Yeah, they're that bad. 13 games out of first place already, and it's December 11th. 0-10 in their last 10 games, and they have lost a franchise record 19 straight games. Then you got the Southeast Division led by the Orlando Magic at 15-7, 8-2 in their last 10, including a win in their most recent game. Second place are the Miami Heat at 12-10. They are 3 games out behind their in-state rivals. 4-6 in their last 10, including a loss in their last game. The Atlanta Hawks are in third place at 9-12, 5.5 games out. 3-7 in their last 10, including 3 straight losses. Then it's the Charlotte Hornets at 7-13, 7 games out of first, 4-6 in their last 10, including a win in their most recent game. And in last place, you've got the Washington Wizards at 3-18, 11.5 games out, 1-9 in their last 10, including 4 straight losses. All right, jumping over to the Western Conference, the Dallas Mavericks still own the lead in the Southwest Division at 13-8, 5-5 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. Then you got a virtual tie for second place with the Houston Rockets and the New Orleans Pelicans. Houston is 10-9, 4-6 in their last 10, including 2 straight wins. And New Orleans is 12-11, 6-4 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game, and both are 2 games out behind the Mavericks. In a distant fourth are the Memphis Grizzlies, 6-15, 7 games behind Dallas, 4-6 in their last 10, including a loss in their most recent game. And in last place, the continued struggles for the San Antonio Spurs, 3-18, 10 games out of first, 0-10 in their last 10 games, and they tied a franchise record with 16 straight losses. Okay, the Minnesota Timberwolves currently own the best record in the NBA through December 10th, as they lead the Northwest Division at 17-4, 9-1 in their last 10 games, including 6 straight wins. The Oklahoma City Thunder sits in second place at 14-7, just 3 games out behind the T-Wolves, 7-3 in their last 10, including a win in their most recent game. The defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets are in third place at 14-9, 4 games behind, 5-5 in their last 10, including 3 straight losses. That's uncharacteristic of a defending champion, if you ask me. Fourth place, the Utah Jazz at 7-15, 10.5 games behind Minnesota, 3-7 in their last 10 games, including 2 straight losses. And in last place, the Portland Trailblazers at 6-15, 11 games out of first, 3-7 in their last 10, including 3 straight losses. All right. The Los Angeles Lakers have ascended to the top of the Pacific Division at 14-9, 7-3 in their last 10 games, including 3 straight wins. In second place are the Sacramento Kings, despite having 1 fewer loss than the Lakers. Sacramento is 12-8, just a half game out of first, 6-4 in their last 10, including a win in their most recent game. Third place are the Phoenix Suns at 12-10, 1.5 games out behind the Lakers, 6-4 in their last 10, including 2 straight losses. Fourth place are the LA Clippers at 11-10, 2 games out of first, 7-3 in their last 10 games, including 3 straight wins. And the Golden State Warriors round out the division at 10-12, 3.5 games behind the Lakers, 4-6 in their last 10 games, including a loss in their most recent game. Oh, by the way, congratulations to the Los Angeles Lakers on winning the first ever in-season tournament over the weekend. All right, now let's look at the playoff standings through December 10th. Top 6 teams in each conference make the playoffs. 7 through 10 make the play-in tournament. So the 6 teams that would make the playoffs out east would be Boston at 16-5 in the number 1 spot. Orlando and Milwaukee both at 15-7. Based on tiebreakers, Orlando would be the 2 seed, Milwaukee the 3 seed. Then you've got Philadelphia in the number 4 spot at 14-7. Indiana in the 5 spot at 12-8. And Cleveland in the 6th spot at 13-9. As for the 4 teams that would make the play-in tournament, you've got the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets, both at 12-9. Based on tiebreakers, New York would be number 7 and Brooklyn number 8. Miami would be the 9 seed at 12-10, and Atlanta would be the 10 seed at the present time at 9-12. Outside of the play-in tournament in the East, you've got Toronto at 9-13, just a half game out. Chicago at 9-14, a full game out, but they are trending in the right direction as of late. Then it's Charlotte at 7-13. They would be a game and a half out. They would be a game and a half out. I was right. Then it's Washington at 3-18. They are 6 games out. And Detroit at 2-20. They would be 7.5 games out of a playoff spot through December 10th. That's a lot of ground to gain in 4 months. And then out west, the top 6 to make the playoffs would be Minnesota, owners of basketball's best record at 17-4. They're in the number 1 spot. 3 games clear of the number 2 seed, Oklahoma City Thunder at 14-7. Then you got a virtual tie for the 3rd playoff spot with Dallas at 13-8. They would be the number 3. Then you've got Denver and the LA Lakers both at 14-9. Denver would be the 4 seed based on tiebreakers, and the Lakers would be number 5. And 6 would be Sacramento at 12-8. As for the teams that would make the play-in tournament, you've got Phoenix at number 7 with a 12-10 record. Then you have a virtual tie for the last 3 play-in tournament spots in the West. Houston at 10-9 would sit at number 8. The LA Clippers at 11-10 would sit 9th. And New Orleans at 12-11 would be number 10. On the outside of the playoff race, you've got Golden State at 10-12, 1.5 games out. Utah at 7-15, 4.5 games out. Memphis and Portland both at 6-15. They would be 5 games out. Memphis would be number 13 in the West. Portland is 14. And San Antonio at 3-18 and 8 games out at this time with their 16-game losing streak. So that's a look at the standings. Now let's take a look at the games that will be playing in the association this week. All right, starting with tonight's schedule, you've got 4 games kicking off in the next half hour, or should I say 4 games tipping off in the next half hour, including the Indiana Pacers at the Detroit Pistons, the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Orlando Magic, the Washington Wizards and the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Miami Heat and Charlotte Hornets. Those 4 games will start in a half hour at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then you have 2 more games at 7:30, including the Denver Nuggets at the Atlanta Hawks and the Toronto Raptors at the New York Mets, or rather the New York Knicks. I'm thinking baseball, and baseball season's over. Then after that, you're going to have 5 games tipping off at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, including the Minnesota Timberwolves at the New Orleans Pelicans. And for some strange reason, the Sports Alerts app has New Orleans favored in this game. I don't get it. Anyway, you got the Minnesota Timberwolves at the New Orleans Pelicans, the San Antonio Spurs at the Houston Rockets, the Chicago Bulls at the Milwaukee Bucks, the Utah Jazz at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Dallas Mavericks at the Memphis Grizzlies. Those 5 games all begin at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Then at 10 p.m., you've got the Brooklyn Nets visiting the Sacramento Kings. And at 10:30, it's the Portland Trailblazers facing off with the Los Angeles Clippers. 5 game schedule for Tuesday, December 12th. At 7:30 Eastern, you'll have 2 games. The Cleveland Cavaliers at the Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers at the Dallas Mavericks. The Denver Nuggets face off with the Chicago Bulls at 8 p.m. Eastern. Then it's the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns at 10 p.m. Eastern. And the Sacramento Kings visiting the LA Clippers at 10:30. And that's your Tuesday schedule. Moving to Wednesday, December 13th, the Philadelphia 76ers visit the Detroit Pistons, and the New Orleans Pelicans are in D.C. taking on the Washington Wizards. Both those games will begin at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Charlotte Hornets at the Miami Heat and the Atlanta Hawks at the Toronto Raptors will both begin at 7:30. And then you have a trio of games at 8 p.m. Eastern, including the Memphis Grizzlies at the Houston Rockets. The Indiana Pacers at the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Los Angeles Lakers at the San Antonio Spurs. This is the first of 2 matchups with the Lakers and Spurs this week. Those 3 games start at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then you have 2 games at 9 p.m. Eastern. The Brooklyn Nets continue their West Coast trip against the Phoenix Suns. And the New York Knicks are in Salt Lake to face the Utah Jazz. Moving Thursday, December 14th, we got a pretty big slate, or not really a big slate of games. There are only 7 on the schedule. The first games of the night are the Cleveland Cavaliers at the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls at the Miami Heat, both starting at 7:30. At 8:30, it's the Minnesota Timberwolves at the Dallas Mavericks. At 9 p.m., it's the Brooklyn Nets and the Denver Nuggets. Then at 10 o'clock, you have two games on the West Coast, the Utah Jazz at the Portland Trailblazers and the Oklahoma City Thunder visiting the Sacramento Kings. That's the 14th. Now it's a Friday, December 15th. You have three games starting at 7 p.m. The Detroit Pistons at the Philadelphia 76ers, the Indiana Pacers at the Washington Wizards, and the New Orleans Pelicans at the Charlotte Hornets. Those three games start at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Then a half hour after that, you'll have three more games. The Orlando Magic at the Boston Celtics, the Los Angeles Lakers at the San Antonio Spurs, and the Atlanta Hawks at the Toronto Raptors. Those three games will start at 7:30. At 8 p.m., it's the Houston Rockets and Memphis Grizzlies. And at 10 o'clock on Friday night, it's the New York Knicks at the Phoenix Suns. Moving to Saturday, you've got the Detroit Pistons at the Milwaukee Bucks at 6 p.m. Eastern. This is December 16th, by the way. Then you've got the Philadelphia 76ers at the Charlotte Hornets at 7. The Atlanta Hawks and Cleveland Cavaliers at 7:30. Then you got the Chicago Bulls and the Miami Heat and the Indiana Pacers at the Minnesota Timberwolves. Both those games will begin at 8 p.m. Eastern. At 8:30, it's the Brooklyn Nets and the Golden State Warriors. Then at 9, you've got Oklahoma City at Denver and Dallas at Portland. At 10 p.m., Utah visits Sacramento. And at 10:30, the New York Knicks, also on a West Coast trip, they're off to face the LA Clippers. And finally, 5 more games on Sunday, December 17th. And we have a couple matinees. The first game is the Orlando Magic at the Boston Celtics at 3 p.m. Eastern. Then you've got the New Orleans Pelicans in against the San Antonio Spurs at 3:30. Now, this is where they'll honor Hall of Famer Tony Parker. This is the game where the Spurs will honor Tony Parker. At 7 p.m. Eastern, it's the Houston Rockets at the Milwaukee Bucks. Then at 8, it's the Washington Wizards and the Phoenix Suns. And at 7 p.m., the Golden State Warriors take on the Portland Trailblazers. And that is a look at the NBA schedule for the next week and the standings through December the 10th. Now let's jump on over to the National Hockey League. And we'll look at the standings there. We'll start with the Eastern Conference. The Atlantic Division is led by the Boston Bruins. 26 games played and a record of 18-5-3 for 39 points with 17 wins in regulation or overtime. Second place are the Florida Panthers. 27 games played, 17-8-2, 36 points, and all 17 wins in regulation or overtime. And then you have a points tie for third place with both the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. Toronto has played 24 games. They are 14-6-4 with 10 wins in regulation or overtime. Detroit, meanwhile, has played 26 games. They are 14-8-4 with 14 wins in regulation and overtime. Both the Leafs and Wings have 32 points. In fifth place, the Tampa Bay Lightning, 29 games played, 13-11-5, 31 points, all 13 wins in regulation or overtime. The Montreal Canadiens are in sixth place, 28 games played, 12-13-3, 27 points, 9 wins in regulation or overtime. The Buffalo Sabres are in seventh place, 28 games played, 11-14-3 for 25 points, all 11 wins in regulation or overtime. And the Ottawa Senators remain in the basement of the Atlantic Division, 22 games played, record of 11-11 for 22 points, and 10 wins in regulation or overtime. In the Metropolitan Division, the New York Rangers having a pretty commanding lead here. 26 games played and a record of 19-6-1 for 39 points, 18 wins in regulation or overtime. The Philadelphia Flyers are a distant second place, 27 games played, 15-10-2 for 32 points and 13 wins in regulation or overtime. In a points tie for third place, you've got the Washington Capitals and the New York Islanders. Washington has played 25 games. They are 14-8-3 with 12 wins in regulation or overtime. The Islanders, meanwhile, has played 26 games. They're 12-7-7 with 11 wins in regulation or overtime, both teams sitting with 31 points. And then you've got a points tie for fifth place with the New Jersey Devils and the Carolina Hurricanes. New Jersey played 26 games. They are 14-11-1 with 14 wins in regulation or overtime. And Carolina has played 27 games. They are 14-12-1 with 13 wins in regulation and overtime, both teams with 29 points. Seventh place are the Pittsburgh Penguins, 26 games played, 11-12-3 for 25 points, 11 wins in regulation or overtime. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are still in last place, 30 games played and a record of 9-16-5 for 23 points with 9 wins in regulation or overtime. Jumping to the Western Conference, the Winnipeg Jets and the Colorado Avalanche are tied atop the Central Division points-wise. Winnipeg played 26 games. They are 16-8-2 with 16 wins in regulation or overtime. And Colorado has played 27 games. They are 16-9-2 and 15 wins in regulation or overtime. Both teams lead the Central Division with 34 points. A very close third place are the Dallas Stars. 26 games played, 15-8-3, 33 points, 13 wins in regulation or overtime. Jumping into fourth place, you've got the Nashville Predators. 28 games played, 15-13 for 30 points, and 14 wins in regulation or overtime. In fifth place, you've got the Arizona Coyotes. 26 games played, 13-11-2 for 28 points and 11 wins in regulation or overtime. In sixth place are the St. Louis Blues. 27 games played, 13-13-1, 27 points. That's like a point per game, and 12 wins in regulation or overtime. Seventh place are the Minnesota Wild. 26 games played, 10-12-4, 24 points, 9 wins in regulation or overtime. And sitting last are the Chicago Blackhawks. 27 games played and a record of 9-17-1 for 19 points and 9 wins in regulation or overtime. Jumping over to the Pacific Division now. The Vegas Golden Knights presently with the NHL's best record, wins and points-wise. They're atop the Pacific Division, played 29 games. They are 19-5-5 for 40 points and 15 wins in regulation or overtime. Second place are the Vancouver Canucks, 28 games played, 18-9-1 for 37 points and 18 wins in regulation or overtime. The Los Angeles Kings are in third place, 25 games played, 16-5-4 for 36 points, all 16 wins in regulation or overtime. Sorry about that. And then the two Alberta-based teams are in a points tie for fourth place. The Edmonton Oilers have played 25 games. They are 12-12-1. And the Calgary Flames, played 27 games. They're 11-13-3. Both teams have 11 wins in regulation or overtime, and both teams have 25 points. In sixth place are the Seattle Kraken, 29 games played, 8-14-7 for 23 points, 7 wins in regulation or overtime. And I think that's the fewest of any team in the NHL. Seventh place are the Anaheim Ducks, 27 games played, 10-17 record, 20 points, and 9 wins in regulation or overtime. And the San Jose Sharks round out the Pacific Division, but they've been playing a lot better. 28 games played, 8-17-3 for 19 points, and 8 wins in regulation or overtime. All right, taking a look at the playoffs. The top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division would be Boston at 39 points, Florida with 36 points, and Toronto, based on the tiebreaker, with 32 points. And in the Metropolitan Division, the top 3 teams there would be the New York Rangers with 39 points, the Philadelphia Flyers with 32, and based on tiebreakers, the Washington Wizards, not the Wizards, but the Washington Capitals, would be the third place team in the Metro with 31 points. And then out west, the top 3 in the Central Division would be Winnipeg with 34 points, Colorado with 34 points, and Dallas with 33. And in the Pacific, you've got Vegas with 43, Vancouver with 37, and LA with 36. They would be your top 3 in the Pacific Division. All right, as for the wild card spots in the Eastern Conference, they would go to the Detroit Red Wings with 32 points and the New York Islanders with 31 points. Tampa Bay also has 31 points, but they played 3 more games than the Islanders, despite having 1 more win than the Islanders. Both New Jersey and Carolina would be 2 points out. Montreal would be 4 points out. Pittsburgh and Buffalo would be 6 points out. Columbus would be 8 points out, and Ottawa would be 9 points out of the playoffs. And then the wild card spots in the Western Conference would go to the Nashville Predators with 30 points and the Arizona Coyotes with 28 points. St. Louis would be 1 point out. Edmonton and Calgary both 3 points out. Minnesota 4 points out. Seattle 5 points out. Anaheim 8 points out. Chicago and San Jose would both be 9 points out of the playoffs at the present time. Now we're going to take a look at the NHL schedule for the next week, starting with tonight's 4-game slate. And 2 games will face off here in about 10-15 minutes from now. The Coyotes and Sabres from Buffalo, and the Maple Leafs and Islanders from Long Island. Both of those games start in a few minutes at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The Detroit Red Wings are in Dallas tonight against the Stars at 8 p.m. Eastern. And the late game tonight is the Calgary Flames at the Colorado Avalanche at 9:30. All right, jumping ahead to Tuesday, December 12th. This is tomorrow night's schedule. The Toronto Maple Leafs are at Madison Square Garden against the New York Rangers. Then you got the Carolina Hurricanes at the Ottawa Senators and the Arizona Coyotes at the Pittsburgh Penguins. Those 3 games are at 7 p.m. Eastern. At 8 p.m., it's the Philadelphia Flyers visiting the Nashville Predators. Then at 8:30, it's the Detroit Red Wings at the St. Louis Blues at 8:30. And then you'll have 4 games begin at 10 p.m. The Chicago Blackhawks at the Edmonton Oilers, the Tampa Bay Lightning at the Vancouver Canucks, the Calgary Flames at the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Florida Panthers visiting the Seattle Kraken. The late game on Tuesday night is the Winnipeg Jets visiting the San Jose Sharks at 10:30. On Wednesday, December 13th, you've got 5 games on the schedule. The Pittsburgh Penguins travel north of the border to face the Montreal Canadiens at 7 p.m. Eastern, same time as the Boston Bruins facing off with the New Jersey Devils. At 7:30, it's the Anaheim Ducks and the New York Islanders. Then at 9:30, the Buffalo Sabres visit the Colorado Avalanche. And at 10:30 Eastern Time, the LA Kings will be home for the Winnipeg Jets. Jumping now to Thursday, December 14th, the Washington Capitals are in Philadelphia against the Flyers. That's at 7 p.m. Eastern. Also at 7 p.m. Eastern is the Columbus Blue Jackets at the Toronto Maple Leafs. At 7:30 Eastern, the Detroit Red Wings will host the Carolina Hurricanes. Then you have 2 games at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the Ottawa Senators against the St. Louis Blues, and the Calgary Flames at the Minnesota Wild. An hour later at 9 p.m., it's the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Edmonton Oilers. At 10 p.m. Eastern, you have 2 games. The first is the Florida Panthers at the Vancouver Canucks. And the last game on the schedule will be the Chicago Blackhawks against the Seattle Kraken. Both of those games are at 10 p.m. on Thursday. Then you got 6 games on the schedule for Friday, December 15th. The Anaheim Ducks visit the New York Rangers at 7 p.m. Eastern. Then you got the Nashville Predators and the Carolina Hurricanes at 7:30. The Boston Bruins and New York Islanders will also face off at 7:30. At 8 p.m., it's the Ottawa Senators at the Dallas Stars. 9 p.m., you got the Arizona Coyotes home against the San Jose Sharks. And at 10 p.m., it's the Buffalo Sabres at the Vegas Golden Knights. On Saturday, December 16th, we have one matinee game, and that's the Vancouver Canucks at the Minnesota Wild at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Then you'll have a multitude of games beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 of them in total, including the New York Rangers at the Boston Bruins, the New York Islanders at the Montreal Canadiens, the Detroit Red Wings at the Philadelphia Flyers, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Colorado Avalanche at the Winnipeg Jets, and the New Jersey Devils at the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, you'll have 2 more games, including the Dallas Stars at the St. Louis Blues and the Washington Capitals visiting the Nashville Predators. At 9 p.m. Eastern Time, it's the Buffalo Sabres at the Arizona Coyotes. And the wrap-up Saturday, you'll have 3 West Coast games at 10 p.m. Eastern. The Tampa Bay Lightning at the Calgary Flames, the Florida Panthers at the Edmonton Oilers, and the Los Angeles Kings at the Seattle Kraken. And finally, on Sunday, December 17th, you'll have 5 games on the schedule. The Vancouver Canucks play a matinee game with the Chicago Blackhawks at 3 p.m. Eastern. Then at 6 p.m. Eastern, it's the Washington Capitals at the Carolina Hurricanes. At 7 p.m., you've got the Anaheim Ducks at the New Jersey Devils. And 2 games at 8 p.m. with the San Jose Sharks at the Colorado Avalanche and the Ottawa Senators visiting the Vegas Golden Knights. And that is a look at the NBA and NHL standings through December 10th. And the games in both leagues over the next 7 days. We'll be back again next Monday with another check of the NBA and NHL standings. So make sure you join me for that. The Week 14 edition of The Week That Was will drop tomorrow. We will be doing Thursday night football, and the 7 early kickoffs from Sunday in part 1. And then we'll get to the 4 late games on Sunday, plus Sunday night football with the Eagles and Cowboys, and the Monday night doubleheader with the Packers and Giants and the Titans and Dolphins. That's in part 2. Both videos will come tomorrow, so join me for those. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the hoops and hockey action this week. Peace out.